Welcome to Synergized Tactic News Network.
I'm Andrew McIvory.
And I'm Frederick Chevrolet.
And I'm Craig Manning.
And I'm Nicholas Arlington.
And today we're discussing the hot new trend, the
American Revolution.
This all started back in the French and Indian War, when France and our lovely British colonies were fighting over disputed land. The British won, of course, and received a bunch of land west of the original border.
That land was inhabited by Native Americans. That will become a huge problem in the future.
The colonists were excited to explore this land, but King George had other plans. He issued the Proclamation of 1763, which restricted colonists from entering the new territory that they just won, as unfairly as Keller ISD restricts my YouTube videos from people to see. It's very frustrating. Back to you, Fred.
This was followed by the Sugar Act and the Stamp Act in 1764 and 1765, respectively.
Don't forget the Townshend Act. They taxed a whole lot of important goods, which included the Tea Act.
Oh boy, the Tea Act. That led to an iconic party.
Or should I say, the Tea Party.
Whether it was the part where John Adams led the infamous Son of Liberty on the ships to dump tea into the sea, or it's the Native American costume they wore, it was incredible. The daring act was called the Boston Tea Party.
However, Great Britain did not think it was incredible. They punished them with these intolerable acts. Here is a live report from James Smith.
The intolerable acts. They're too intolerable. Everyone gets a high ground now and find shelter from these intolerable conditions. Back to you, Craig.
Thanks, James. The intolerable acts basically gave Britain complete, total, entire control of the colonies. Let's rewind a little. In between the Townshend and Tea Acts, there's something else that happened.
That something was the Boston Massacre, when a British guard was watching the building. The Common House with all the tax money that should be ours. Some rightfully angered colonists tried to stand up to him.
A little fight broke out. Reports flooded in about more British soldiers coming and massacring the colonists. 5 were killed after the quarrel.
Anyway, skipping back ahead to the Intolerable Act, some smart people over here in the colonies had a meeting to decide what to do next.
That meeting was the first Continental Congress. In their meeting, they decided to boycott British goods to avoid taxes.
We showed them who's boss. But a little while later, a battle erupted in Lexington and Concord in 1775 when British soldiers were sent to capture some weapons. Their thought process being, no weapons, they can't attack us.
But our untrained and angry militia, or Minutemen as like to call themselves, fought back and made the British retreat. Victory for us, eh?
Well, I may have shot at a few British bugs off our shoulder. That only leads to more tension between us and Great Britain. Sooner or later, we needed to meet again to decide what to do about that tension.
And again we did. And meet again we did. This was the second Continental Congress. Second, not first. And includes everyone you'd find on an American Revolutionary baseball card. George Washington, Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, etc.
We did a lot of stuff at this meeting. But the important things were that we formed the Continental Army with George Washington leading it, and we sent the Olive Branch petition to King George III, giving him a last chance at peace before we brought out our war phases.
However, King George wasn't one for peace. He immediately rejected the petition and hired 30,000 German mercenaries.
But before we get into the war, we made the Declaration of Independence, which was mostly written by Thomas Jefferson. It stated our problems with Great Britain and that we were our own nation, not part of Great Britain anymore.
Oh, and in 1776, Thomas Paine also wrote something called Common Sense that encouraged more colonists to want independence. But back to our declaration.
The Declaration was signed on July 4th, 1776. Some colonists have started to call it Independence Day. Maybe that will become a holiday for future generations to come.
Don't be silly. Anyway, back to war. Technically, the war had already began, but don't worry about that. If you count Lexington and Concord as a battle, which it kind of is. But the turning point of the war was the Battle of Saratoga.
And we won that battle. That battle convinced France to ally the United States in the war.
A good victory, but short-lived. The Continental Army stayed at Valley Forge in Pennsylvania for the winter of 1777 and 1778. It was long, and the army was tired and hungry. Here's a live interview with Jake McDonald.
Wow, it's so cold here. A polar bear showed up. Chico,
guys.
what do you think about the harsh winter here at Valley Forge?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Great, thanks for your opinion.
I'm tired. It's cold. I'm hungry and I need some clothes. Oh wait,
Well,
these clothes.
we're sorry to hear that. Hopefully, you'll get better from all the starving and whatnot. Back to you, Fred.
But a guy called Baron Fihir von Steuben came and whipped him up into shape. Also, the news of France as an ally reached them after the winter. That added to their positivity.
There were more battles, but the last major land battle was the Battle of Yorktown. Cornwallis, that scallywag of a British general, surrendered to our beautiful George Washington. And from that moment, the war was practically won. Hooray.
But the war was officially over in 1783 when the U.S. and Great Britain signed the Treaty of Paris. Great Britain agreed to recognize the United States as an independent country, and the U.S. agreed to pay British merchants what they owed.
This is Synergized Tactic Reporters, signing off.
Do 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 do.